Holy shit. Ricky Gervais's opening monologue at the 2020 Golden Globes Awards. Oh my god! That happened! That actually happened. Like, it's been less than 24 hours since that speech was made, and the guy is now officially legend outside of Hollywood. I can't believe that happened. It just, oh my god. I'm not going to go on and on about it here, but I'll link the video in the description below, and you have to watch this yourself. This is unbelievable. It totally ruined my opening, but just holy shit, Ricky Gervais, you the man. I don't know much about your work, and I've heard your name before. I don't know a lot about your work, but goddamn, you were doing God's work last night. You were doing God's works, man. Okay. So, with that little bit out of the way, this video is going to be a little on the unusual side in that I haven't quite decided if I'm going to call this a legitimate unboxing or if it's going to be more of a vlog kind of thing. I haven't decided as I'm recording. I haven't decided yet. But anyways, this there is an unboxing that's going to happen in this video. So this has been in the mail for about 6 days, or actually it's been more like 7 or 8 days. It's been in the mail, whatever. And so there is going to be an unboxing, but in order to get to the unboxing, I have to kind of explain what's going on. So the unboxing is actually going to happen later in the video. So that's why I was like, am I going to call this an unboxing or not? And I know I spoke with Maxell in 1954, I think. And he told me to, oh, Ava, you need to cut your videos down. Well, this is a case where it's not strictly speaking an unboxing, it's more of a vlog. So please treat this accordingly. At least for this first half, you can, you can let the video run in the background and just listen to it. So, how can I? This is going to be the third time where I've changed my mind on something. And it was not, and only this time it was not due to peer pressure. Ava, you gotta get it. Ava, you gotta review it. Ava, can you please review it? It's not that. This is not related at all to CDX. Unlike the Samurai Hao, where I first changed my mind, and that was in 2011, and the second time where in 2017 or 18, 2018, I think, where I changed my mind about Hyper Go Say Great. In both cases, I really, really didn't like it when they made their debut and whatever it is. Um, but then in later years, I was like, okay, I'll take a second look, and okay, maybe it's not as bad as I thought it was. So this is going to be the third time where I've changed my mind about something, but I feel I need to justify it a little bit. The story of this video actually goes back to my teen years. Is that right? Yeah, my teen years, because I was 19 years old when this happened, and I'm 37 now. Um, so I've actually been rehearsing this a little bit, practicing like what am I going to say. So in the year 2001, the word prequel had not been thrown around a lot. Kind of the At the time, the first thing that came to your mind would be Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. That was a straight up prequel. Now, the word prequel did not debut with Episode 1, but the word definitely rose to prominence. I think one of the earlier examples would have been Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. That was in what the earlier mid 19 that was like the early 1980s or something like that. I don't remember the timeline for the Indiana Jones movies, or at least the legitimate ones. Um, so anyways, and most definitely the word prequel did not at the time in 2001 did not have the negative connotations that it does today. Oh god, another prequel. So can't they just are they so desperate for new content that just going to go backwards, and that thing that we all, that kind of cringe factor that we all respect nowadays, that was not present in 2001. So like that had not happened yet. Prequelitis had not happened yet. It was on the way, but it had not happened yet. Was it a result of this? Not necessarily, no. but I'll get to that in a moment here. Um, but sequels, no, because like I said, Star Wars Episode One had just happened 2 years earlier, and in 2001 we were still waiting for Episode Two, Attack of the Clones. That had not happened yet, so we're between Episodes One and Two. Also, the evolution of the internet. The internet was still in its infancy. Well, I can't really say in its infant stage, but it was kind of in its toddler stage at this point in 2001. So we were just starting to transition over into to GIFs, GIFs. We were just starting to move away from text-only bulletin boards. We were just starting to do that in the early 2000s. Um, Twitter did not exist. MySpace did not exist. Facebook did not exist. YouTube that we're watching right now, it didn't exist in 2001. So social media, as we call it now, didn't exist at that point. It was on the way, but it had not happened yet, or at least it had not become mainstream yet. Hell, even cell phones were still, LCD screens, and they had flip top covers on them. You know, so that's the kind of environment that we were in. It was also the dawn of the millennium and the end of the 20th century. So we were all hyped up about that. So when it was announced that the United Paramount Network (UPN) was going to be making a prequel to the legendarily powerful Star Trek franchise, we were like, What's a prequel? What does that mean?" They told us that the story is going to take place 100 years before the time of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. Uh, wow! We're going to get to see the foundation of the United Federation of Planets. We'll get to see how Starfleet evolved. We'll get to see the Prime Directive as it's being created. We'll get to see that final scene at the end of Star Trek First Contact where Zefram Cochrane shakes he can't do the Vulcan salute, and he chooses instead to shake hands with the Romulan. Wow. I'm sorry, with the Vulcan dignitary. How did I screw that up? Well, it only happened in 1997. That was a historic moment for Trekkers everywhere. That was like, oh yes, we needed that. So, and that was and that first contact moment took place a little over 100 years before Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. So it's going to be like right on the edge of that. So like, wow, we don't even have warp. Earth doesn't even have warp capable starships yet, let alone interplanetary transports. We don't even have that. So it's going to be really boring. Because we're going to be traveling really slowly, and actually, we had no idea what was going to happen. We honestly didn't know, because Gene Roddenberry and Gene Kuhn and was it Robert Blackman and the very recently deceased DC Fontana, Dorothy Fontana, may she rest in peace. Um, they had been deliberately vague on what happened before Star Trek. We knew that there was a eugenics war, but there was also a World War III. But, were they different events, or were they the same name or different names for the same event? We didn't know. It was deliberately left vague. And I don't remember if Gene himself said that he wanted what happened before Star Trek to be left alone. And yes, Star Trek had traveled back in time a number of times. Certainly, the most prominent example would be Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, and then years after that, when Deep Space Nine was on the air, they had was it Trials and Tribulations, which was a celebration of the then 40th anniversary, 40th or 35th. Might have been the 35th anniversary of Star Trek, something like that, where the DS9 crew unintentionally time travels back to the time of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. TOS, the original series from the 1960s. It's called TOS, or it's abbreviated to TOS. So there'd been another number of time travel episodes, and then there was also Star Trek First Contact, which was a time travel story, but not really a time travel story. You have to watch it to kind of understand. You have to watch it to understand what's going on. So, but wow, we'll get to see the foundation, the founding of the United Federation of Planets, and we'll get to see the Andorians for the first time. We'll get to see Tellarites and Vulcans and Klingons and Romulans. Oh my! We'll get to see all the kind of interesting races and how Earth interacted. It's entirely possible we might even get to see the Earth Romulan War. I don't remember exactly if the Federation, again, it's deliberately vague. It was deliberately vague before TOS happened, whether or not, um, when exactly the Earth Romulan War happened. It was like 50 years ago, 70 years ago, something like that. And my mind is not up to date on the trivia from TOS, so I may have missed something. But anyways, so like, wow, this might actually, like, maybe it'll be like Deep Space Nine, where Earth is starting to, or humans are starting to explore away from Earth, and then they get into trouble with the Klingons, and then all of a sudden there's the Earth Klingon war. And maybe at some point we'll also see, maybe that'll even turn into the Earth Romulan War, because they were two separate events. We might even see the first contact with the Cardassians, and then there was an Earth Cardassian War or Federation Cardassian War. That might happen, unless that was 23rd century, 24th century. I don't remember. I know there was a conflict, and there is a neutral zone between. Well, there's more of a buffer zone. Yeah, neutral zone, buffer zone, same thing, between the Federation and the Cardassia Prime. So this prequel series, like, wow, this will be interesting. Um, and we had just come off of, uh, was it First Contact or Insurrection? I think we'd just come off of Insurrection, and we were all kind of, well, that happened. What's Insurrection was not bad. It just wasn't good. So it's just kind of okay. It exists. Whatever. There were some questionable things they did, but like nothing to outright offend Trekkers or even general American audiences, like or American moviegoer audiences. So like, Insurrection exists, and that's kind of all we can kind of say of it at this point. So like, it exists. Whatever. I mean, I'm not going to bash on it. Just kind of, it exists. There it is. Whatever. So we were kind of, it looked like Star Trek needed a pick me up of some kind, and what better way to do that than to explore the origins of the United Federation of Planets and of Starfleet Command. So we were cautious, like, okay, we don't know exactly what you're going to be doing, but this sounds interesting. Okay, we'll go ahead and go with it. And that chair is really squeaky. So the very first inklings that I had of anything happening with this prequel series, I mean, it was announced at the end of Star Trek Voyager's run, which I didn't watch a whole lot of. Oh, I forgot to mention, yeah, Star Trek Voyager also happens. Like, Insurrection was like, okay, whatever. But Voyager was kind of strained throughout its entire 7 year run. It was lackluster. I mean, it was an interesting concept, and Paramount Television and the people who had been running the TNG era since 1987, they knew what they were doing, but like, you could tell that there wasn't a lot of ambition behind Voyager. Yeah, it had high points and it had low points, but it didn't really go anywhere. It wasn't very interesting. And even the actors themselves from Voyager have spoken out over the years, like, yeah, it just didn't do anything, and they had plenty of opportunities and they didn't do it, and they could have done this and they didn't. So you could tell there was frustration behind the camera, but ultimately Voyager just kind of, it exists, and I'm not gonna bash on Voyager either, because it has its fair share of fans, and yeah, okay, there's a couple of episodes I like, but it's not a series that I watch, that I would watch over and over and over. DS9, yes, I watch it. TNG, yes, I watch it. TOS, yes, I watch it. And about 2 years ago, for the first time ever, I watched the animated series, the 1970s animated series, all the way through. So that was interesting, and I won't mind watching it again. But Voyager, like, I kind of know where the highlights are, so I'll just watch those particular episodes and then call it good. So yeah. So Star Trek was in need of not necessarily fresh blood, but it was in need of some revitalization. It needed to get some energy and get going and doing things. So a prequel, rather than just continuing the story, well, let's look at the origins of the story. Like, okay, we can do that. Yeah, sure. So the first exposure that I had was that teaser trailer in the final episodes of Voyager, not just Endgame. Voyager's last episode was called Endgame, not to be confused with the Marvel Cinematic Universe name. They called it Endgame, and so there was a teaser trailer all throughout the commercials of those final episodes. Um, Not just Endgame, but a couple of the ones beforehand. So there was this teaser, this new series is coming out. That's kind of all we knew about it. And all it was text on screen, and you had a narrator, and that was it. But my first exposure, aside from those teaser trailers, which all they did was they gave us the name of the series, and that was it. They told us, the series is going to take place 100 years in the past, or it's going to take place 100 years before TOS, and here's the name of the show. That's all we knew. There were no pictures, there was no casting, there was no nothing. So my first exposure to the series, we now knew the name of the series, and the series is going to be called Enterprise. Not Star Trek Enterprise, but just simply Enterprise, or ENT for abbreviation's sake. Put you down. You might be able to hear me better now that I've pulled it down a little better. Now I can scratch my nose because why the hell not? So we knew the series was going to be called Enterprise, and oh wow, the humanity's first Warp 5 capable starship is going to be called Enterprise. How appropriate. Yes, absolutely. We will stand behind it. And then I don't remember where I got it from, but I remember going to a grocery store, and TV Guide was still a thing back then. Yeah, we had cable and satellite TV, but TV Guide was still a thing at that point. So I picked up TV Guide. God, it didn't even occur to me. I wonder if I think I still have it somewhere. I didn't even think. Where would I have that? If I still had it, it's either in the closet or it's over there. Yeah, I'm gonna go look for it. I'll be right back. Okay, so I didn't find it, which I only took a cursory glance. Like I'd have to tear that thing apart, and I'd probably have to tear that thing apart too, and I'm not gonna do it right now. So I'm confident that I have it. I don't know where it is. So or it's so buried I can't get to it. So anyways, I got my hands on TV Guide. Because they were about this big and they're real thin. They only covered about a week's worth. So you couldn't jump ahead 2 or 3 weeks or a month in the scheduling. Um, and on the front picture or on the front page, on the cover, I can't talk, was dramatic photographs of Captain Jonathan Archer and the Vulcan science officer T'Pol. And then you flip to about because I mean there's like entertainment news or whatever it is in the first half, and then the rest of it was black and white scheduling, for all your local channels, whatever it is, or satellite channels, satellite cable, stuff like that. So, anyways, in the color pages in the front of it, there was a centerfold of the NX-01 Enterprise. And that was my first exposure to it. That was my first exposure to anything from the shows. The cover, and then flipping ahead, flipping ahead. Okay, wait, that's the Akira class. That's what? Wait, what? Oh, really? They're going to be doing that? Huh? That's that's the that that's the USS Thunderchild. Wait, what? Wait, no, that's not. No, it's got to be a misprint. What's going on here? That was my reaction. I was 19 years old, and I saw that, and I immediately thought of that. So the first reaction was like, "Wait a minute, that's a very futuristic looking design. Why are they? What's going on? I don't understand. Why does it look so similar?" And in that TV guide, there was just the one picture, the dorsal view, and that was it. That's all there was. It's just that top view, and that was it. So so we trekkers, we kind of that's not right. That can't be right. Why are they using a futuristic design for? So that was kind of the first sign that okay, something weird is going on here. But Okay, the to be fair, the Akira class, which made its debut in Star Trek: First Contact, yeah, that is a neat design. Everybody likes it. It's just why are you using it for such a an almost 200-year-old design at that point? What about Matt Jeffrey's concept designs for what was at the time was going to be called the Yorktown, the USS Yorktown? What happened to all that? Where's the sphere? Where's the big cylinder at the back and the dish on the front and where's all that thing? Nowadays, that's actually been retconned to be known as the Daedalus class. That thing, but the concept sketches up there in the Daedalus. I don't know how I'm gonna organize this. So the Daedalus class was renamed or is officially recognized based upon those sketches of Matt Jeffrey's, original designs. So that's what we were all expecting. What we were not expecting was just the was it the Akira class, but turned upside down, which is more or less what the NX-01 is. It pretty much is that. The only difference is it doesn't have the dish on the, or if you try, the only difference is it doesn't have the dish on the bottom. For whatever reason, I put the dish on the front, and it's not even like a round dish. It's just this is really stretched out oval, really thin, narrow, and you could barely see it. You barely notice it. And where's the swooping and the thing is so like if you look at it from the top view, okay, it looks just like the Akira class, which has since then earned it the moniker Akira Prize. So please forgive me if I slip into that. It's either the NX class, which makes no sense whatsoever if you're a Trekker, or the Akira Prize. That's how it's known. And that was the first sign of trouble. Like, okay, something's not right here. That's something weird. Well, the show came out in early 2001. Um, I should also point out, I'm saying the year 2001 over and over and over. Yes, Enterprise made its debut in 2001, but the show had already finished shooting and had already been finished editing and all that stuff months before September 11th, 2001 happened. So this was months before 9/11 happened. So there was no 9/11 had no impact whatsoever on the first season. You'll see bits and pieces of it in the second season. And at the time that the show was airing, yeah, there were little notifications that happened, like we mourn the losses and we suffer with you and stuff like that. So at the time that the show was airing, yeah, it made acknowledgments, but within the context of the episodes, no, there was no acknowledgement because all of that had been shot already. All of that had been edited at that point. So we were just waiting for it to come out. So, anyways, the show came out and Enterprise came out. That was both the name of the show and the name of the ship. So Enterprise came out, and wait, what is that kind of little brick with a little rounded off thing? That's a shuttle pod. That's a shuttle. Oh, it's called a shuttle pod. Why does it have wings on it? Because you don't need atmospheric wings. And where are the impulse engine nacelles? And um where's uh and they have a shuttle bay, but they drop vertically from underneath, so it's a drop bay, except that they don't drop, they just kind of and then they turn around and then they fly off. What? And then they've got phasers, but wait a minute. In the first regular episode of TOS, or I'm sorry, the second pilot, which is called Where No Man has Gone Before, they were still using lasers. So why is it all of a sudden 100 years earlier they're using phase pistols? And the Enterprise herself could shoot phasers or phase cannons or whatever it is. And they have photonic missiles. Okay, we'll give you that one. We'll give you that one. Photonic missiles, but they look like AMRAAM missiles. Like what? Um, and then there was, and then if you actually get into the lore, as opposed to just the visual appearance of things, you get into things like why the hell are the Vulcans acting like such overbearing assholes? What is up with this? Why are they acting like that? What is going on here? And on top of that, one of the biggest problems that I had with it was I'm I'm a white hetero male, and I do love some female form. Not gonna lie, not gonna make any excuses. That's fine with me. But one of the biggest turn offs, or one of the God, I'm gonna sound like such a social justice warrior when I say I'm not. I'm not. But at the time in the late '90s, when Seven of Nine made her debut mid-series in Voyager, like, okay, I can understand the Borg outfit. That's all well and good, but why in God's name did they put her in cat suits for the 4 years that she was on the air? Really? I I like the curves. The curves are in the right place, and Jerry Ryan, actress Jerry Ryan, she looks wonderful, obviously, and of course, the blonde hair doesn't hurt matters any. Um, but like, why is she in a cat suit? Everybody else on the show is in the casual, you know, loose fitting stuff. Whoa. I'm sorry, I'm spitting and sputtering all over. I'm getting anxious. I'm getting excited. I'm foaming at the mouth or frothing at the mouth. Um, but as respectful as anti-sexism, as anti-racism as Star Trek is or was in the 1990s and early 2000s, I I did not like Seven of Nine or just Seven being in cat suits all the time. And not only cat suits, but she wore high heels all of the time. I can't remember the last time that she was in anything and was flat-footed. If you want to have a slightly raised heel just because it's a boot or something like that, okay, whatever. But why is she in high heels? Well, it's because Seven of Nine, the whole reason the character was introduced was because they wanted to add some literal sexy to the show. Because, no offense to the actress who played Cass, but Cass was boring. And everybody knew it at the time. In fact, the first 3 seasons, it just wasn't, the character wasn't going anywhere and the character wasn't doing anything. And just so they got rid of her and they put a sex bot, a literal sex bot, into the show in the form of Seven of Nine. So, like, okay, I can understand that. But Catherine Janeway, she had curves in all the right places, and she wasn't in a form-fitting outfit. Milana Torres, sure. Oh gosh, who was the other one? Cass was just in casual clothing, whatever. So you got to see curves on her once in a while. But on the other hand, that's not what you're supposed to pay attention to. They're female. You're supposed to look at their mind, and yeah, if they've got nice curves, okay, whatever. But you're not really supposed to think of them in that way. So when Seven of Nine came on, okay, why am I talking about Voyager so much? So when Seven of Nine came on, I like eventually over the course of 4 years we came to appreciate her mind and appreciate what she was doing. But still, early on, it felt like the producers were trying too hard. They were in try hard mode with Seven of Nine's apparel, and it didn't change over the course of those remaining 4 years. So I was not. I was genuinely at the time, and even today, I'm still not happy about it. Like now, I can watch it. I mean, it took time to appreciate Seven of Nine for her mind and her capabilities and even her physical strength at times, but the physical curvy was distracting. And Star Trek is known for having exotic looking females and having scantily clad and stuff like that. It is known for that, especially in the 1960s. I won't go on about the budget, but Star Trek does not trade on eye candy. So, I mean, you can have it once in a while in those occasional Orion females or some exotic alien princess, whatever. Like you can do that once in a great while, but vast majority of the time, Star Trek doesn't do that. Even in the original series, there were some females who were dressed appropriately. So the reason I bring up Seven of Nine is because Seven of Nine was a popular character. So apparently, the producers, be Rick Berman and Brandon Braga, both thought that, well, let's keep doing that. Let's have at least one female in the show who is in a cat suit, and we ended up with a Vulcan female in a cat suit who, by the way, was also in high heels more often than not. And that was First Officer slash Science Officer T'Pol, or Sub Commander T'Pol. I'm sorry, she was a Sub Commander. And I didn't like that either. Still to this day, I did not like her cat suits. I really didn't. And regardless of how her wardrobe changed, like the actual clothing would change, but it was still form fitting. I, you don't need that. And if you want to acknowledge it once in a great while, okay. By the way, Jolene Blaylock, she got naked, like actually naked, on camera in season three, but you only get a back shot. Don't care. Looks great. Um, like that's okay to do it once in a great while and whatever because it's a main character, but not the way that she was constantly in form fitting outfits. I didn't like that. If and what adds insult to injury is that every single Vulcan that we'd seen, pretty much every single Vulcan we'd seen up to that point, was in long flowing robes. They were in, they'd wear hats and they'd wear all kinds of fantastic stuff. I don't know clothing, so I can't describe it. And they'd wear robes and belts and they'd wear, decorations and jewelry and all kinds of stuff like that. But I would hardly call any of that form fitting. Hardly. Indeed, the very first time we meet T'Pol in the pilot episode Broken Bow Part One, she's in a robe. She's in a Vulcan robe, just the same as the rest of the ambassadorial crew or whatever it is, the no names and whatnot. So she's in a robe, the same as all the others. So like that's appropriate. That's acceptable. But the moment she walked into the captain's ready room aboard Enterprise in that same episode, all of a sudden she's in a cat suit. Like I know she's got pointed ears and pointed eyebrows too, technically, but why would you put her in a cat suit? Vulcans would like if you want to get rid of the long robe or whatever it is and keep her in short robes or whatever it is, okay, but the only skin she should be showing at any given point is her hands and her face. Now, granted, all the most of the time all she showed in the series was her hands and her face, and that's all well and good, except for that one episode I pointed out. Oh wait, I forgot. There's the whole rubbing lotion thing that happened in the pilot episode too. Which let's try to forget about that, please. They played it up, and I'm so glad they got rid of that after season one. So decon gel, that was called decontamination gel. God, that was so stupid. So I never liked T'Pol's wardrobe. I never liked it. I like the character. I like the character, and I like the character arc she goes through. But just I mean, I like the character, but I never liked her wardrobe ever. So that also set me off because it's not just that a female lead character was dressing like that, but to add insult to injury, it was a Vulcan that was dressing like that, and nobody else on the ship was dressed like that. None of the humans were dressed like that. So if they were doing that to say, well, she's an alien, well, we already know the pointed ears and the pointed eyebrows, so you don't need to decorate her up any more than that. I mean, she didn't even wear any jewelry. Um, so the way that T'Pol was dressing was a carryover from what Seven of Nine wore in Voyager, and I didn't like it either way. Again, red-blooded male, red-blooded hetero male, but I didn't like it. So, or it rather it was misplaced. It was not appropriate to show that. So please don't call me a social justice warrior because I'm not. But just suffice it to say, I didn't think it was appropriate. Don't call me gay. Don't call me social justice warrior because I am neither. But that being said, it was not appropriate for T'Pol to be dressed like that or Seven of Nine. So that was another point of contention, and one of the big ones that carried throughout the entire series was that most of the audience did not like Scott Bakula's casting. He was cast as Captain Jonathan Archer, and most people thought that he was miscast. In fact, a lot of people behind the scenes also didn't like him much. Not personality wise, but professionally, they thought he was miscast. They didn't think he was doing it right. Is it just me, or does he always sound like he's been smoking forever? Just saying. But apparently it was Rick Berman's call, executive producer Rick Berman. It was his call whether or not uh, Scott Bakula stayed on Enterprise or not, and he wanted to keep him, so Unless you want to get a new captain in there at some point, which in the context of the show would have been an awkward thing to do. So it's understandable. But it's not like they didn't have plenty of opportunities to return to Earth and get a new captain. I'm just saying. How many times did the captain say, "I'm going to stay behind and take care of this"? To Paul, you're in command, and don't let Starfleet sneak anyone in behind you. So, yeah, I didn't like his casting. Nothing against him professionally. Just it was a miscasting. It should have gone to somebody else. And to this day, I still believe that. Um, and then there was things like, well, they have a transporter, but it's just this little alcove that's just along like one corridor. Like you could easily walk right past the transporter and not even know it was there. There's a little booth. There's this one little one-person booth right there, and that was it. So that was that was not a good thing. I never liked the transporter the way that set up. Uh, it only has one pad, but you could. I think in the Augments trilogy, which was in season four. I think there were like 4 or 5 people on the pad at the same time. No, in the Andorian incident, which was in season one, there were 3 people on the single transporter pad. It's like, wait a minute, there's a single pad. In the original series, you could only do one person per pad, you know, because that's the way editing and technology of the 1960s, blah, blah, blah. So there were more than a few things, and then and then as the series went on, there were things like, why are you showing the Borg? Why are you like, how the hell did Phlox survive being an attempt at assimilation? How the hell did he survive that? I mean, even Picard didn't survive it. He was assimilated, and plenty of other Starfleet officers. Star Trek: First Contact would have been completely different if they'd known about Phlox's cure for assimilation. That would have been the end of the story. Instead, Picard shoots the one guy. Like, believe me, you'll be doing them a favor. What? There was a cure that was developed 200 years ago. I'm just saying. So, like, how Dr. Phlox survived, I don't even. So there were things like that. There was the first appearance of the Ferengi. We did get to see more Orions. So we kind of get that, and they do behave like pirates. That's good. And speaking of female curves, we got a really, really sexy um, single episode of 3 Orion females who were just schmoozing all over the place in season 4. So we got to see that, and that was very gratifying. That was very satisfying. That's okay. All right, you got me. Um, but we did get to see, uh, yeah, we got to see Tellarites. We got to see Andorians. We got to see Vulcans being assholes. They were dominating dickheads. I don't know why they did that. What's going on? What is it? So, in recap, it was not one thing alone that made me walk away from Enterprise before this first season had even ended. And keep in mind, I was 19, almost 20 years old. No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I was 18 years old because in September 2001, I would have turned 19 years old. I'm sorry, so I've been saying that wrong. So I was 18 years old when Enterprise made its debut, but I was 19 years old. I turned to 19 years old before the season one ended. So by the time season one had ended, I watched for about, I think it was 4 or 5 episodes, and then I walked away. I just to me it just felt like more Voyager. And that was on top of all the little trivial Trekkie gripes that I was bringing along with me, all the baggage of consistency and canon and continuity and all those things. Uh, there was a lot of stuff about Enterprise I didn't like. So by the time the 4th or 5th episode, I don't remember where I stopped. By the time that came along, I wasn't happy with what was going on. There were, like I said, it's a bunch of little things. It's no one big thing, but it's a bunch of little things. They're all over the place. That's what drove me away. And I finally, like, I'm good. It's just going to be, oh well, it's just going to be like Voyager. The stuff I like, stuff I don't like. I don't care. So I walked away before mid-season even happened. There is, now that I think about it, there is one thing that I did like. about Enterprise when it came out. And the weird thing is, I actually swim against the current on this one, which I am known to do. I swim against the current on this one. The theme song, the opening theme, was not an original composition, an original score by, what was his name, Jay Chathaway, or who was a regular series music composer. It wasn't done by him. It wasn't Jerry Goldsmith doing his cameo like he did with Voyager, and it wasn't that. Instead, it was a, oh crap, what do they call them? It was a cover of a country song that was called "Faith of the Heart," and it was sung by, I totally blanking on the guy's name. A lot of people didn't like that song. They just don't like the song because, like, oh, it should be an orchestral piece. Which, to be fair, I like orchestral music. Hello, I like orchestral music. Okay, so for me to come along and say no, that actually was not bad. I actually did like the way it was presented and the way it was performed and the way it was edited. I was like, yeah, I like what they did. It, since this is the beginning of, and I actually wrote the creators on this one. Since this is the beginning of Star Trek, they needed to have a feeling of Earth as it is now in the early 2000s versus how Earth will be 100 years from now in the 2200s. So they needed something like that. They needed something to bridge the gap. And so I actually like the opening credits. I do like the opening credits. And it is unique for Star Trek. They never used like a cover song or anything like that before. If you watch Star Trek First Contact, they had Magic Carpet Ride by oh crap, what's his name? Steppenwolf. I think Steppenwolf did Magic Carpet Ride, so they had that in there. Whatever. And then if you get into you get into the Kelvin timeline, there's okay. Less said about that, the better. So, anyways, so I liked Faith of the Heart. That was a nice song, and it was well performed, well edited, stuff like that. And I also liked the graphics that they used. It's a bunch of pictures and photographs and lithographs even of ships called Enterprise and of historic moments in flight. You know, from obviously from the 20th century and early 21st century at that point. Um, so that was nice. I also I like the opening credits sequence. In fact, the only thing that I would protest is actually something that my dad brought up at the time when the show was on, and he said, you know, if Star Trek is an international cast or is is supposed to represent all of humanity, why are they only showing historic flight moments from American historic flight moments? There's no Russian rockets. There's no Russian space station. There's no Great Britain missile launches or Great Britain spaceships or anything like that. It was all American footage. You sit back and think about it. Oh yeah, it is. Hmm. So that's kind of the only bugaboo I've got. So. So I like the opening credits. That's kind of the only thing that I actually carried over from the whole show. You know, here it is, almost 19 years later. It's just now 19 years later, and opening credits are still legit to me. Um. So, anyways, as I was saying, so I walked away. Only 4 or 5 episodes into the first season, I walked away and I was done. And then 9/11 happened, and that just messed with everybody's mind at the time. I don't know how it affected production, but I mean, America literally came to a standstill on September 11th, 2001. So if the show came to a standstill, I don't remember or I haven't seen how they did that. In 2000, let's see, one, two, three, four. In 2004, or was it 2005? Star Trek, they renamed it in season three. So it was no longer just Enterprise, but now it was called Star Trek Enterprise because apparently the television goers were not aware that there was a Star Trek series. So, like, how could you not know? Because, like, they were advertising it multiple times. I guess you tuned out during the commercials of Voyager, or you weren't watching Voyager, period. So, like, apparently people didn't know that Enterprise was a Star Trek series? Like, how could you not know? There's a show called Enterprise. What's it about? Oh, it's about rental cars. Yeah, it's about a rental car agency. That's what Enterprise is about. Um, so in the third season, they changed it to Star Trek Enterprise. Fuck that. I still call it Enterprise because it is. So in 2004, Star Trek Enterprise was canceled due to low ratings. This would actually be the second Star Trek series to be canceled due to low viewership. And the first one, obviously, being the original series in 1969. It was canceled, I think it was 2 months, or it ended its run 2 months before Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, which is an historical irony. Um, Even though they mentioned the moon shot, I think once or twice in the original series, and they actually showed a Saturn V launching. It was one of the test launches of a Saturn vehicle, Saturn V rocket. But the show was canceled 2 or 3 months before Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. But Enterprise would now be the second series, Star Trek series, to be canceled due to low viewership, low ratings. The people just weren't watching. Now, just as just as TOS was an ironic cancellation because they weren't viewing audience numbers the way they are now. Because the Nielsen rating system, quick history lesson here, the Nielsen rating system didn't exist in 1969. It wasn't until after 1969 where the Nielsen rating system came in, and then the advertisers, and then the television production studios, then they realized, oh, there were an awful lot of adults, young adults watching this Star Trek series. But at the time, it was just numbers, period. They weren't focused on the demographics the way they are now. That was not the same thing. So, in an ironic twist of fate, Enterprise was canceled not because of its demographics, but rather because of simply low numbers, and that was due to the then new technology that was called DVR, digital video recording, or whatever it is. DVR was new in the early 2000s, and what United Paramount Network, although nowadays it's called the WB, but they're not the same people. They're nowhere near the same people. United Paramount Network, or UPN, they were aware that DVR existed, but they didn't take DVR into account when they were looking at the numbers. If they had, they would have found that there was a significant portion of the audience that was not watching live broadcast as it was happening, as they had been watching them for decades beforehand, but rather they were recording it and then watching it on their own time. But UPN didn't take that into account. The executives, they weren't watching that. They weren't paying attention to that number. If they had, well, they would not have made the mistake of moving the time slot that it was in. It might have been on a Saturday evening, or it was on a Friday, or it was on a Wednesday, or even they put it on Sunday. So they moved the time, the day and time of week that the show was on the air. So they actually deliberately made it more difficult for the show to watch by not keeping it in a consistent time slot. And that was on top of not paying attention to the DVR numbers. They existed, but it was so new that they didn't think the DVR was going to go anywhere. I mean, nowadays we DVR without even thinking about it. But at the time, DVR was new, and so the executives and the studio were not, and the advertisers were not looking at those numbers. So, and that put together with moving the time of day and which day the show was on, it didn't help. In fact, I remember there were a number of public announcements that were made by cast members where Scott Bakula and Connor Trainier and Jolene Blaylock, they would stand in front of the camera out of character. They were in costume, but they were out of character, so it was just themselves, just the actor. And they would say, hey, watch our show. Our show is on this time of night, or is on at this time of day on this particular day. If you can watch, that'd be great. I remember those commercials. I don't remember the exact wording, but they're like, hey, yeah, our show is on. Our show is still running. Hey, check us out on this new time slot. And they made those because the executives were not watching the DVR numbers. So Enterprise was canceled towards the end of its fourth season. It was allowed to complete its fourth season, so it has a full season, but they had to cancel, they had to end it, at the end of the season, so they had to wrap up any threads they had before then. Um, that was in 2004, and at the same time that Enterprise was getting those low numbers, Star Trek Nemesis hit, and that was. Oh, we'd had bad Star Trek movie before in the form of Star Trek V: The Final Frontier. Whew, that was a stinker. Um, Although I have my own opinion, I have differing opinion on Star Trek V. I won't discuss it here. Um, Nemesis was there. It went in with good intentions, but the execution was just, what in the hell happened to that movie? Really? It was written by a self-professed Trekker, somebody who had not been on a Star Trek production before, but he was a Trekker, and he had all the right intentions, but it ended up looking like copy paste. I won't discuss Nemesis here, but it's kind of ironic the way the name of the movie, but just Nemesis was a dud. Now it was not hated, but just it was a dud. It was just kind of, really? This is how you want to end the next generation era of characters? Really? You want to. Nemesis was a dud. So you had both Nemesis, which hit the floor very loudly, and then you had Enterprise doing this slow trickle down to nothingness. Star Trek hit the lowest point in its existence in 2004. And then, hey, 2017 came along and we exceeded those expectations. Fuck. So, yeah, Enterprise was not in a good place and it was canceled. I wasn't even aware the show had been canceled. Like, people told me, or, I found out later that, oh, yeah, did you know Star Trek Enterprise was canceled? Really? That's unfortunate. And I didn't give it a second thought. Well, a family friend had been using that wonderful mystical magical device called the DVR, and he made copies of all the episodes. We had DVDs at this point. DVDs came out in the early, like, late '90s, but it was that whole DVD, or is that, yeah, HD DVD versus Blu-ray thing that happened in the early 2000s. Anyways, he made recordings of the whole show, and he sent us copies of the fourth season. It was like 4 or 5 discs or something like that, a couple episodes per disc. And he said he actually sent them to my dad, because my dad and I were both the hardcore trekkers. Hardcore? Yeah, I guess we're hardcore. We don't cosplay or go to conventions, but yeah, we're decent trekkers. So he sent them to my dad, and my dad shared them with me. And I'm like, why? Neither one of us is watching this show. And the family friend said, no, you need to watch this fourth season. This is good shit. This is good shit. You need to watch this. I'm like, it's Enterprise. No, no, no. You don't understand. You need to watch the fourth season. There's T'Pol with a cat suit, Scott Bakula's big nose, and there's the Akira Prize and the shuttle pods, and oh my, Orion females. Wait, wait, wait. That's Brent Spiner, uh, cast as Data's grandfather. They're talking about why Klingons lost their forehead ridges. They're talking about what? They're talking about why the Vulcans were such assholes for the first 3 seasons. What is going on? What? The tragedy of Star Trek Enterprise is that the fourth season finally delivered on what it should have been doing since the start 3 years earlier. The tragedy is that by the time the fourth season finally kicked off, the people who would have noticed had already walked away. We didn't have Twitter. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have MySpace. We didn't have Reddit. We had MSN.com. We had was it America Online? We had Netscape Navigator. God, who remembers Netscape Navigator? I do. Web crawler. I was using web crawler in high school. Come on, folks. No, I was using web crawler in middle school. In my last year of middle school. Good times. Yahoo made its appearance in the late '90s. All that good stuff. Um, but anyways, we didn't have social media, so word spreading about Enterprise getting better in the fourth season and actually delivering on what it should have done 3 years earlier, it didn't spread. It didn't make any difference. And that on top of not looking at the DVR ratings, and that on top of bad word of mouth through the bulletin boards and things like that, it becomes an ironic tragedy. The show could easily have been renewed for a fifth season. They had started planning for a fourth season, and you could tell that they were working really hard to get people back, and that's why the fourth season happened. It had nothing to do with a last minute reprieve of a letter write-in campaign like there did in 1967. Yeah, 1967 to give Star Trek the original series its second season because NBC was going to pull the plug after the end of the first season because it wasn't making money. Wasn't They weren't getting the numbers in, but there was a huge legendary write-in, or the historic, I'll say historic write-in campaign to save the second season. But that didn't happen for Enterprise, and to me, it's tragic. It's an ironic tragedy because the fourth season was really good. Was really good. Yeah, I still have my bugaboos about the Akira Prize and T'Pol's outfits and Scott Bakula's nose. I don't know if he's Jewish. Please don't make any jokes like that. Just don't. Yeah, and so I still had all those bugaboos, but it was like, okay, okay, the show's really good. I don't care about those things. La 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 la, and that's pretty much what I had to do. So for about 15, 14 years at this point, um, I was aware that Enterprise's fourth season was actually really good. It was good. I wish I'd known about it at the time. I would have watched it, and then I would have been really disappointed when the show was canceled. Um, so for about 15, 14 years now, because we still have those DVR copies, um, and once in a while I would pull them out and whatever. So that's my story of Star Trek Enterprise. So why am I bringing it up? Well, about I think it was in September or October of 2019. So a scant 4 months ago from this point. It was about 3 4 months ago. Um, we have Netflix, and I was watching fourth season of Enterprise because drag myself through the mud and ignore all those things and oh, yeah, those females, yeah. And having Enterprise on the top and Columbia on the bottom, getting close, and Tucker having the dangle between the thing was no, it wasn't affliction. It was divergence. It was in the second episode. So I was watching it, and then it kind of got to the point where I'm like, I'm bored. I've seen this before, so I'm just going to go back and rewatch Broken Bow Part One and Two, which is the series premiere. Um, and then oh shit, Netflix jumped to the next episode. All right, I'll watch the next episode. Why? It can't be that bad, can it? And then it jumped to the next episode. All right, I'll watch it. And then it jumped to the next episode. All right, I'll watch it. And then it jumped to the next episode. All right, I'll watch it. And the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And before I realized it, I was almost a quarter of the way through season two. I, as I've just taken how long to explain, I never watched Enterprise all the way through. I saw a little bit of first season, and I saw all of fourth season, and that was it. But here I am, 3 months ago, binging Star Trek Enterprise and liking it. Like, Oh, okay. All right. Cautiously optimistic. I know where it's going to go. Okay, this isn't as bad as STD. Note, I've only seen one episode, and this is the only time I'll say this in this video. I've only seen one episode of Star Trek Discovery, and that was the pilot episode that was aired in 2017 on broadcast TV. I do not have CBS All Access. I will never get CBS All Access, and I will never watch that show. CBS television could not pay me enough to watch that tragedy. That's no, not even a tragedy. That shit pile that they've had airing for the last 2 years. Short treks, not changing my mind. Discussion's over on that one. The new upcoming ST Picard, I'm not going to watch that. I'm not going to watch that show because it's being made by literally the exact same people who are currently fucking up STD. So no, I'm not going to watch. No. But anyways, bad jokes aside, okay, this Enterprise show, this isn't as. But you've got to keep in mind, it'd been well, at that point, 18 years, half my life since I'd seen Star Trek Enterprise. I actually sat down and watched the whole thing. 2001 to 2019, late 2019. It had been 18 years. And I'd never gone back and actually watched the whole thing. So I, I can't tell you, like, even sitting here right now, I don't know what changed. Is it that I'm so disappointed with Star Trek Into Darkness and bolstered by Star Trek Beyond, but disappointed by Star Trek 2009, and refused to talk about STD, refused to talk about STP, refused to talk about short treks, that I'm like desperate to go to the last bastion of quote unquote good Star Trek? Like, is it out of desperation, or have I matured in the last 18 years to the point where I'm more open, where I'm not confined by, well, Gene Roddenberry clearly said you can only have warp nacelles in pairs. None of this Kelvin shit. We're not doing that. Look, it only has one nacelle. Not that. Go away, sea cleaner. Go away. No, but maybe the same kind of reasoning for the USS Kelvin that I use on the USS Kelvin is the same kind of reasoning that I've been applying to um, Star Trek Enterprise, where it's just just relax. It's not the end of the world. It's okay. Does it mean that my standards as a Trekker have changed? Maybe. I'm 37 years old, and I started watching season one, like really watching season one. I think it was just after I turned 37, or just before I turned 37 in September. So something along those lines. So has something changed? Have I am I not that I'm losing touch with Star Trek, but like have I gotten to the point where you know what? It's a triviality. Don't worry about it. Just deal with it. You know that Paul's going to have those form-fitting outfits that you don't like. It's going to be there, but there's some good stuff in that show. There's good stuff in that show, and it's well nowadays 19 years later, almost 20 years later, we would call it go get woke, go broke. Social justice warriors and bra burning feminists of the 1960s and 70s. It's not that. It's nowhere near as bad as that. And Enterprise was never accused of being woke. It was never accused of that. But like saying it right now, you would think that I was implying that Enterprise was woke. No, I'm not saying it was woke. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not like diversity. Yes, there was a black actor on there. So what? Yes, there was one female actor on there. There have been more. Yes, there was one alien, and yes, there was one Brit who was not the bad guy. So like I'm not doing that. I'm not implying that at all. I'm just saying I'm judging the show based on how well it was written, and it did not have agenda behind it. So do not assume. Just if you're watching this, please do not assume that I am applying today's wokeness against a television show that aired almost 20 years ago. God, it's been 20 years. Oh shit. I'm not saying that at all, and I never will say that. I'm not going to say that because it's not true. Um, but maybe it's just I needed a reminder of a previously new television series. Like, what was Star Trek like back when it was good? Although I have bugaboo, I have a differing opinion about Star Trek Beyond compared to most Trekkers and the Phantom Menace, but whatever. Um, so I like Enterprise. All of a sudden, I found like, wow, I'm liking Star Trek Enterprise. Granted, maybe not quite as much as Deep Space Nine, maybe not quite as much as Next Generation. You want to talk about a preachy series? Watch Next Generation. That was nice and philosophical, but oh man, that show has aged quite a bit. It's surprising how much that show has aged, especially with the babysitter sitting right next to the captain on the bridge, no less. Just saying. That show hasn't aged as well as I like to think it has. Um, like I was, how old was I when Next Generation came out in 1987? I was 5 years old, and I saw Encounter at Farpoint with my own eyes on broadcast TV at the time. So, I used to think it was the greatest shit, but now you watch it and like, oof, that show's dated. Oof. But anyways, I've changed my mind in the last 3, 4 months. I changed my mind. In fact, I've only just recently moved on to the fourth season again, and so now that I've seen the Cindy arc, and now that I've seen seasons 1 and 2, now I could put together, oh, okay, that's what they were referencing. And oh, when Commander Shran said that Archer had destroyed the Zindi probe before we got a good look at it, well, if I finally saw the season 3 episode where that happened. Okay, yeah, he really did destroy it before they could get a look at it. They got a sampling of it, but they didn't get a lot of information on it. So, okay, now I've seen that with my own eyes. Okay, so now that makes even more sense. And the frustration in Shran's voice when he says it is great. So I I may have to watch it again, but I think I'm gonna. I've been saying for 19 years now. I've been saying, or well, 18 years, 19 years at this point, that Enterprise was a bad show. Here we go. I can't believe this is in range. I wasn't thinking when I said this. Uh, that's right there. That's right there. In fact, this is how much I disliked it. Y'all are familiar with Microsoft Word for Windows, right? Well, when I was in high school, because I was in my final year of high school in 2001, or I graduated in 2001. When Enterprise came out, I wasn't thrilled with the Akira Prize. I didn't like it. So, is my name on this? No, it's not. So, using the drawing toolbar on Microsoft Word, I even made my own Enterprise. Or I made my own version of it. This is my replacement for the Akira Prize. Like if I had done it, this is what it would have looked like. So here's the NX-01, here's the Constitution class, and then here's my version. So it would have been slightly bigger, but so yeah, that's so I can't believe I still have this. I still like this design. It's neat. It reminds one of the Daedalus class, and there are some details I can't believe that was right there. What convenient timing that I had that sitting there for years. I was like, oh, that's sitting right there. I'm just gonna yank it out. Um, So I've been saying for the better part of 18, 19 years, Enterprise was a dud except for the fourth season. But now that whatever happened to whatever compelled me to keep watching those episodes, and not all the episodes are great. There's still a couple of stinkers. The one in season 1 where Tucker gets pregnant. That's still a cringe episode. No, thank you. And I don't know all of the cringe episodes because every series always has a cringe episode. Why are you sticking it? Every episode obviously or every series has its cringe episode, unless we're talking STD. I thought you weren't going to talk about that anymore. I'm not talking about it. Shut your face. Um, I am no longer going to be bashing Enterprise. So it took 19 years as opposed to 2 years for um, Samurai Ha-Oh and 8 years for Hyper Gose Grey. You know, it took me 18, 19 years to get to this point. So I'm I'll have to rewatch the show again. Like I'm going to take a break from it and watch something else, and then I'll come back and binge it again. But I think I'm a fan of Star Trek Enterprise. All's the more tragic. It's cancellation due to low numbers. I think I'm a fan. I think I'm a fan of Star Trek Enterprise now. So getting to this, I consider this a fool's apology to the creatives of Star Trek Enterprise. They're probably never going to see this, and I don't know how to contact any of them. But if at some point in the future one of them comes along this video, and they see it, I hope they'll accept this as my apology for being stuck up and being so nerdy that I didn't see the goodness that was in front of me until it was too late, not appreciating it for what it was. But I guess, I guess it took that change or whatever it is. So with this hour-long description, what do you say we get on to the unboxing already? Hmm? So a little bit ago in this very video, and it just occurred to me, I've done two Star Trek videos in a row. How weird is after having done none? How weird is that? Anyways, about three and a half weeks ago, I did that unboxing of the or overview, I guess, of the USS Kelvin from the 2009 movie. And I said, fuck it, I swim against the current. Say what you will of the 2009 movie. The Kelvin sequence was amazing, and I like the design of the USS Kelvin. I should point out there is one thing. Upon reflection, I've decided that the engineering hull is too small. Like it should, not lengthwise, but like thickness. It should be a little thicker. It should be a little fatter. Because it's almost the same diameter as the warp nacelle, and I can understand. Yeah, okay, I might have screwed that up a little bit. So, or not me, but like, okay, I might have missed that the first time around. So, the other thing I noticed, and this is an Eaglemoss thing, the thing I'm about to mention, is that the both the engineering hull and the warp nacelle engine, um, they are, if this is parallel, then they are curved slightly off. That may be just due to the molding process or how it was stored or how it was on display for whoever owned this previously. But it's and I'm exaggerating here. It's also slightly off center. So uh, that's not going away anytime soon. So. But anyways, this was my first exposure to Eaglemoss, and as I said previously, I was aware of Eaglemoss, maybe not by name, but I was aware of their diecast and ABS replicas, but like, I don't really care. And then I saw the Kelvin, I'm like, okay, whatever. So this is going to be my first purchase from Eaglemoss, like directly from Eaglemoss. So, and this cost me. I should point out that any Starship collector purchases from Eaglemoss that are over $60, it's either $60 or $65. Shipping is free, even if it's brand new. So I paid $75 for this, but no shipping and no tax. No tax? No tax. Yeah. So no tax, no shipping and handling. So I paid $75 for this. Yay! Oh, good. I hope they have that in here. I was wondering about that. Oh, good. There it is. Okay, and that's not loose. Why? And so here we have the XL version of the Enterprise NX-1 from Star Trek Enterprise. And again, it's the only whatchamacallit you got, only picture. It's a little more silvery than I would like. It should be maybe like just this side of bronze, maybe. It's too Starfleet gray, two Starfleet silver, whatever it is. So it should have been slightly bronze color too, which it does even in the pilot episode. Hmm. And of course, because this is the 8.5 inch, 9 inch, however long it is, because this is the larger, yeah, right, because this is the XL version, or special edition version of Eaglemoss's starships. It also comes with a booklet, and I went over that. That's a nice view. And it went, and I'll be going over this obviously, just like I did with the Kelvin booklet as well. So, which I still have, which I enjoyed reading that thing thoroughly. I read through that Kelvin booklet, and I couldn't help but think of the hypocrisy of Jar Jar Abrams and bad reboot productions. I couldn't help but think of it, but the way it's written there, it sounds sincere, like they genuinely wanted to do it. But I couldn't help but read before, when I unboxed the Kelvin figurine, or statuette, whatever it is. When I unboxed the Kelvin replica, uh, the ruse of Soywoker had, or I'm sorry, the fall of Soywoker had not happened yet. So here we are, going on 3 weeks now, and it's only just now about, it's at like $900 million right now. So it's taken 3.5 weeks to reach $900 million, and the hypocrisy is real, and the backstabbing is full in progress, and the media is having their field day with toxic masculinity and toxic fans and stuff like that. So that's all going right now. So as I was reading through the Kelvin booklet, which is over there right now, I couldn't help but be colored by that. And even knowing full well that after Star Trek 2009 came Star Trek Into Dankness, and then there was Star Trek Beyond, and then there's STD and all those things. So bad reboot productions and Jar Jar Abrams. I still like the Kelvin, and there are bits and pieces of Star Trek 2009 that I do legitimately still like. But just the hypocrisy and all kinds of stuff like that, just not happy about that. And there she is. A lot of painted windows. Are those windows? I don't know if those are windows or not. Hmm. Okay, so we have a felt display stand. Once again, nice and heavy with the die cast. Very nice and heavy. Okay. And then, because they have to customize the display stand for each ship. So, but it doesn't really say which way this is supposed to go on. I guess it's heavy enough on the front and the back. Ooh, that was a nice heavy clunk. And this model is obviously, or I'm sorry, this replica is a lot bigger than. Come on, get out of there. Tempted to turn this upside down. Maybe if I go into cells first. Yeah, into cells first. Okay. Wow, this is heavy. Holy shit. That's a lot of die cast on display right there. Holy shit. I'll put this here. Oh my god, that's way heavier than the Kelvin. Holy shit. Oh my god, is the whole saucer die cast? No, no, the whole bottom half. The bottom is die cast. Oh my gosh, these booms are die cast. Are they? Oh yeah, the pylons are die cast. Oh, this is completely. Oh my god, this is so heavy, folks. What the hell? Wow. Looking at the dish, the dish that is not a dish. I feel like they could have made the dish, or that kind of stretched out what I'm called the array, navigation deflector array. I think they could have molded it as a separate piece and then glued it into place, but no, it's molded in as part of it. So there's a little bit of paint error. This is so heavy. What the hell, dude? I haven't. This is great. Oh, that's a nice angle. Let's see. I'll find that angle again. That's a beauty angle right there. It's a nice shot right there. Pretty much almost every single Enterprise, with the exception of the Enterprise Delta, can pull off that angle. Can pull that off and make it look good. Heavy. Holy shit. The Aztec pattern is intact and looks really nice, but you don't see it unless the light comes in at a specific angle. That's good. It's supposed to do that. That's good. You're not supposed to, unlike the Kelvin, where it's supposed to look like the panels are old and worn out. This is supposed to look brand new. You know, she's fresh out of space dock. So yeah, I've heard of XL Enterprises or XL Eaglemoss Enterprises where the bridge dome was scratched off or whatever it is. No, mine's intact. Mine looks fine. Wow. Everybody has their lists of most favored to least favored Enterprise designs. Um, is this one going to be at the bottom of the list? I'd have to think about it. I'm not gonna post a list. Well, I might in editing. I don't know. But is this now my least favorite Enterprise? Not really, because like if I'd gotten to the if I'd gotten to that point where I still don't like the design of the Enterprise, I would not have bought this. You know, I would not have put $75 in this heavy buzzard. I'm going to be going on and on about that weight. It's ridiculous. But I think, you know, aside from that drawing that I showed off a little bit ago, I think kind of the biggest offense, aside from being the Akira prize, aside from that, I think the biggest offense is that these arm structures here should have been a lot shorter or even non-existent, so that the pylons, which are these wing structures here, the pylons should have come out here like this, out at this direction, and then had the nacelles directly above. So that's kind of the only thing at this point, you know, 19 years later, and now looking at this and saying, okay, it's good enough. Like, yeah, okay, I would have designed it differently. The how well is this going to come out? I don't know. The shuttle bay that is not a shuttle bay right there. I still don't know what that is. It's weird. And in answer to the question, apparently no, this is not it. That is not the engine room. The engine room is actually uh, in there somewhere. Actually, no, I think it's engine room is inside there somewhere. So yeah. Oh, they have a faded paint for the dome on the other side. Like it's just plain old copper or gold, whatever it is on the gold or copper. It's more copper kind of thing, but it's not bronze. It's copper. Um, this is not the same as this. This is actually a faded dome where they actually have like two or three different coats of paint on there. Um, Eaglemoss replica ships have a reputation. Not all of them, but some of them have a reputation for having the printed patterns, the decals or whatever it is. They're off center. They're not printed on properly. Um, from what I can tell, there is the oh so slightest of drift, but it's kind of at the point where, unless you're like, or with a microscope or something like that, you're not really going to notice. It's actually more noticeable on the Kelvin, the streaks of stuff striking the hull and then bouncing off, dust or fire that had been emitted from a different battle at some other point. You can tell that that's slightly off center. You can also tell with the Kelvin. Why am I talking about the Kelvin again? You can also tell because of these molded lines on the, which is part of the shield deflector grid or whatever it is. You can also tell the registry number and the name. They are actually slightly, and I'm going to exaggerate here, but they're actually slightly. shifted off to one side by like by like 2 millimeters, but it is significant enough. You look at it and it's like, it's gonna bug me. But and then this the same thing on the top here. Let's see, where is it? Yeah, you can see the scuff marks here, the deliberate scuff marks, the painted scuff marks. You can tell that they're not lined up properly, and you can tell on the underside here they're still not properly lined up. So Eaglemoss, I think regardless of whether it's the regular 4 or 5 inch versions or the 8.5 or 9 inch versions, Eaglemoss Starship replicas have that reputation where some of them are good, some of them are not. I was recently debating whether to get the Enterprise A model, but wow, there are some significant gaps in the design of that thing. The warp nacelles are the wrong shape. The bridge module is completely the wrong shape. So it's like it was a prototype that they released, but they never fixed it. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be getting the Enterprise A, which is tragic because I actually like that design. But anyways, at first blush here, the oh, I saw that. That looks nice. You can see through the warp filled grills on both sides. Although it's kind of it's a little more of a turquoise color than the actual like kind of blue. Is that true? I didn't mean to rhyme that. Yeah, it's kind of yeah. Anyways, as I was starting to say earlier, look at the display stand. This one is not nearly as sturdy as the Kelvins, which has much longer tines to it. Oh yeah, that's gonna fall first chance it gets. I wonder if they have replacements for these. Although I guess they would have had replacements in place by now. Anyways, for the supposedly for the fifth season, for rumored fifth season, the Enterprise, the NX-1 Enterprise, was going to be getting a refit, a major overhaul, and it was going to get a secondary engineering hull installed, shown over here. Now, Eaglemoss made that, but it never appeared on screen. I have the one of the Star Trek Ships of the Line calendars that has a centerfold that shows off the Enterprise refit or the NX-1 refit. And obviously Eaglemoss has their version of it, but I decided I'm good. I've got some small bugaboos about the refit version. Yeah, it's nice, but it gets kind of busy in the back here, so boy, that really does not hold on well. I can't push it on any tighter. That's much tighter on the Kelvin. Oh, get off there. See, yeah. Oh, they didn't paint the saucer impulse engines. I don't think the NX-1 was the first one to have 4 impulse engines on it or not. I mean, obviously the main ones are sitting back here. It would help if I show it. You can barely see it, I know. But the light blue there, oh God. Okay, we're not using that stand right now. We're not going to do that. So the 2 light blue areas here, those are the impulse engines. But there's also another pair here. I'm sorry. There's pair impulse engines right there. By the way, there's another glory shot right there. If you watch the was it the 3-part Vulcan uh, episodes in season 4? There's a couple of really nice shots where the Enterprise is in orbit around Vulcan and it comes out like this. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. It comes out like that. It's a really nice beauty pass. Looks real good. There's another shot where the Enterprise is mostly dark. It's mostly in the dark, but there's light coming in from one side, a harsh light coming from one side, and there's shadow from the other side. And so what you see happen is the Enterprise will come around like this, turns around, and then it goes to warp. So that was a really nice shot, whatever it is. I want to get an Akira class. I want to get the USS Thunderchild, which is the only named ship that we have so far. So It's very difficult to deny. I'm actually looking forward to reading that book because I want to see the evolution of what they were thinking when they were designing this ship. Like they had to have they had to have looked at the Daedalus class. They had to have taken that into consideration when they did this. So what I want to know is why the Enterprise refit from the motion picture TMB, why they put the bridge right there. Why is that there? I never. What is this supposed to be? It's not the engine room. It's not because, like I said, the engine room is back in here. Engine room's actually really close to the. Actually, I don't know where the engine room is now that I think about it. So, or I don't remember where it is. But yeah, what is this thing? What is this supposed to be? I have no idea what that is, and I kind of wish it was gone, so it was just like that. That was kind of one of the big points of contention, but it's there. I mean, the ironic thing about it is if like the futuristic engineering principles that they have in place to be able to make a ship that travels fast can travel like 1,000 times faster than the speed of light, which is what warp 5 is. Um, then presumably this is a structural girder of some kind, and then there's like a field stability. I think it's like a warp field stability module or something like that. That's what that's supposed to be. I don't know. The RCS thrusters, which are these little gold dots or rectangles here. The paint is in the right place, but then there's a tiny red stripe that goes around the outer edge of each of those. The red stripe on most of these is slightly off. So, well, at least they got the shuttle bay aligned properly. I always wondered why it is the shuttle bay had four doors, but they only ever used two of them. Like, why? Hmm. I wish we'd seen shuttle bay control because obviously it's sitting right there, and then there's that little nipple sitting right there on the underside. It's like, what's that for? Well, it's a leftover from the Akira. This isn't the Akira class, gosh darn it! It's the Enterprise. It's the NX class. Grr. So yeah, I guess I should show off the shuttle bay, which is those four doors right there. Although, yeah, and there's a pair of cargo bay doors right there. Really, really narrow cargo bays. Like I'm not even certain that they are cargo bays anymore. There's another pair on the upper side, which also mirrors the Akira class. This this rectangular structure right there, that's also blatantly taken from the Akira class. In fact, the only thing it doesn't use, because with the Akira class is basically this, and then this roll bar here extends upwards. That's what the Akira class is, and then on top of all that, you've got the navigation deflector or the engineering hull is actually this huge bump that sticks on the underside. Well, there's a picture of it over there, so you can see. Basically, if you turn the NX-01 upside down, then it's the Akira prize. Actually, I would have taken the Enterprise if it had been like this at the warp missiles. Oh, I just realized it's the Ares class from Prelude to Axanar. Meh. Which I would not mind. I wouldn't have minded in it. Oh, huh. Or is it? Oh, it's slightly off center, or is it? Hard to tell. The other thing is that this is almost a circle for the saucer section. You can't really call it the saucer section because it's not a section, and it doesn't separate like any other Enterprise has in the past. Wow. Okay. My finger just slid along it, or my thumb just slid along it like this, and because there's so much diecast in here, holy shit, that is a tight edge, or I'm sorry, that's a sharp edge right there. So, ooh, handle with care, Ava. Seriously. So if those aren't windows, why are there big old black dots on there? I'm looking inside the Bussard collectors. I don't think there's any detail in there. There's like a silver dome, or it's not white. It's a silver dome, so it's painted the same as this. And then the red goes across the top. So it's really, really. I can't see. Can't see what I'm doing. So the red on the leading edge of the warp nacelle there. Those are the Bussard collectors. I can't get over the weight of this. This is ridiculous because I've had the Kelvin for 3 weeks and it's featherweight compared to this. Like the top of the saucer was metal, but it's also nowhere near as big as. I think this is actually a full 9 inches. I could be mistaken because the Kelvin was 7.5 inches long, something like that. So this is easily 8 inches right here. So hang on, let me check. No. So like I was saying earlier, is this my least favorite Enterprise? It's kind of low, but boy, those anti-collision lights are going to be, or the port and starboard anti-collision lights, those are going to wear out so fast. That is merciless right there. I feel like the edge of the saucer is not thick enough. I feel like there's something missing. Oh, there's the airlock. Very, very tiny airlock. Oh, I wonder if they've got the phaser. Let's see. Oh, they have both forward and aft torpedo tubes. Okay. Yeah, there's four forward and two aft. But um, part of the problem is they had the phase cannon ports all over the place. I don't think I'm gonna have to go back and look, but I don't think there's any one place where the phaser ports were. Yeah, it's definitely there, or at least I don't see any obvious ones. Because where the weapons are marked on the Kelvin is good enough, but they're and you can see the torpedo tubes or photonic missile tubes. You can see those tubes very obviously, um, but not on here. And I like that. I love that really subtle painting of the Aztec pattern. Very subtle. Like unless you have a direct light shining on it, you've got this tilted at just the right angle, you're not going to see it. Well done. Well done, Eaglemoss. Well done. Okay, so that's it for the NX-01 Enterprise. And now on to the little booklet. For the longest time, I've been aware of Diamond Select Toys, which in the mid 2000 aughts, they had this large range of like foot and a half long starship replicas from Star Trek, and I reviewed two of them: the Enterprise D, which is sitting up there, which is almost 18 inches long, and then the TOS Enterprise with the piss circle pattern on the top. It's called HD, but I was like, questioning that. They had a lot of quality control issues in terms of the types of materials they had, and the print patterns that were on them. So, and yes, they also made an NX-1 Enterprise, but uh, I'm not going to pursue that. So, I have to wonder with the design of all these ships. Um, Obviously, the reason why production designers and concept artists why they add windows and directors and writers and stuff, the reason they add windows is so that if you know how big that porthole or that window is when you have an actor on a set, then your brain judges how big the ship is. But you have to wonder if there's a flat surface on the underside on the underside of the hull. It basically means you've got windows that are in the floor. So you got to wonder who has their quarters aboard the Enterprise where the windows are on the floor, and do they have a problem with that? I'm just saying. It's the NX class, launched in 2151. She has phased cannons and polarized hull plating. If I'd been designing the show, she would have had She would have had no shields, no defensive, nothing. Oh, this is totally different from. Oh wait, nope, nope, I went too far. First appears Broken Bow. Last seen the use of the Voyagers. Christ, you know all that stuff that I was saying about how I was convinced that Enterprise was a good show. Oh, that final episode. Oh Christ. Oh, there's like I can understand they were rushed to make the final episode because final episode, but holy fuck, that episode was so bad. It's like basically it's so bad that almost nobody in the regular cast liked that episode. Even oh crap, what was the name of the guy who played Shran? I can't think of his name. Jeffrey Combs, that's his name. Even he didn't like it. And Jonathan Frakes and Marina Sirtis, who guest starred in that final episode, they were like, why are we doing a TNG episode in the series finale of Enterprise? Like a lost episode of Next Generation. Like, even they felt they were stepping on Enterprise's toes. Like, oh, we're going to bring in the big nostalgia factor. But it's like, oh, God, Broken Bow. Or, These Are the Voyages. It's supposed to be a nostalgia trip, and it was the exact opposite. It was just a trip. Ugh. So, he was last seen These Are the Voyages. She was designed by Doug Drexler and captains. She only had one captain. Well, was Archer with his big nose. Enterprise was created by Star Trek veterans Rick Berman and Brannon Braga. Berman had been an part. I'm sorry, influential part of Star Trek since development on Next Generation and had co-created DS9 and Voyager. Braga had written many of TNG's most memorable episodes, indeed. And co-written the movies Generations and First Contact Generations. Ugh. Before going on to run Voyager. Together, the two men had created Seven of Nine. Why are you bringing that up here? Why did I bring it up? Berman was fascinated by the idea of setting the series in the aftermath of First Contact. By the way, there's a font error right there. Which he felt was one of the most successful installments of Star Trek, which it is. He wanted to explore how humanity would work with the Vulcans and evolve into the force we saw in Captain Kirk's day. Which, yeah, I mean, we were all thinking that when that happened. Absolutely. Boy, there's a lot here about the show. I'm surprised. When it came to the Kelvin, it talked a lot about the ship, but hmm. Oh, Berman and Braga's original plan was that the series would be set principally on Earth, where we would follow the development of the Warp 5 program, making it Star Trek's equivalent of The Right Stuff. This idea was revisited in the second season episode First Flight. Hmm. Wouldn't that have been interesting if the entire first season had been on Earth? I can understand why they didn't do it, though, because that would have been pretty boring. Oh, look. Okay, okay, hang on here. Is it just me? Let's see, how can I do this? Or does Miss Jolene Blaylock look incredibly photoshopped to be, like, inhumanly thin? Like, I know she's... this is not turning out very well. I can't see what I'm doing. She looks so photoshopped. She looks like... Not just because she's a Vulcan, but she looks like the actress here is photoshopped to such a degree. She looks inhumane. Like what? I'm not happy with that. I'm not happy with that at all. And I picked that up as soon as I turned the page. What is going on here? So either when they were cropping the original picture to stick it on this magazine, or that's what the original picture looked like. Her head is huge, and her low and her like the back half of her torso is like been cut off by a couple of inches, and her arms are really thin, and that's on top of the whole cat suit thing that I was telling you about earlier. Why? That looks so weird. That's not a very flattering. That's not a flattering picture. If that's an unmodified picture, then my apologies. That looks really strange. That's not a. What the hell? Braga's idea for introduce the I'm sorry. Braga introduced the idea that people from the future were interfering with events that took place in the series. However, at this early stage, he hadn't worked out who the different players in the Temporal Cold War were, and the writers were careful to keep their identity secret. They never did answer that question because the show was canceled. The Suliban were a new species that had been altered by visitors from the future. Berman said it was no accident that their name was so similar to the word Taliban. There you go. Because in the year 2000, uh, we had the kind of prototype attack on the USS Cole, where they took a little boat and they rammed right into it, and then it exploded. So we were aware of Al Qaeda at that point, but they were nowhere near as household name friendly as they became in the wake of 9/11. So okay, yeah, they do kind of sound the same. Come on, make with the ships already. There's a lot of. I'm getting disappointed here. Like I didn't get this so that I could hear about the show. I want to casting. Why? Finally, there's only 2 pages on the Enterprise herself. Call me disappointed. I was talking about this earlier with. I'm really disappointed with this magazine now. All of a sudden, I was expecting a lot more information on the ship itself, not the show. Come on, if I wanted the show, I'd go to was it Memory Alpha? Anyways, I was talking earlier about the model itself. I mentioned how here's the main impulse drives, but then here's the secondary impulse engines, real tiny things. But for whatever reason, on the replica, it doesn't have the secondary, the smaller impulse engines. That's a screen grab. I don't care if it was made in 2001 or not. Why is that there? Computer gener. What is going on here? They barely talk about her. What? That's it. They barely talk about her. There's 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 okay, you have to get to page 16 to see anything, to even see the Enterprise herself, and then there's a bridge console, and then there's main engineering and then there's the shuttle bay. Wow, those shuttles actually look nice. And then there's an actual photograph of the set, and then that's it. There's one shot here from Broken Bow, from the climax of Broken Bow, where the Enterprise is flying underneath the helix, and that's it. It's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a screen grab 6 of the Enterprise herself. What? And that's it. Wow, color me disappointed. Like, the entire Kelvin booklet that I had, it was nothing but the Kelvin. But for whatever reason, like honestly, I would have preferred to have uh, the the booklet be. I mean, yeah, if you want to talk about the show itself in the beginning, okay, but like it goes on and on and on and on. And like I said, you have to go to page 16. That's the first. Yeah, I can't see. That's the first shot of the Enterprise herself, actually talking about the ship itself. And then on the very next page, when you go to page 18, a new era of effects, and then page let's see, that's 18. So page 19, it says computer generated aliens. Why are you talking about why? You don't need that. Calling me disappointed. By the way, wow, this booklet's is it all just for me? I hope not. It's kind of dirty. Wow, I'm disappointed. I'm almost angry. I'm almost angry because I paid $75. It's nice and all that they talk about the show and the reasoning behind the show, and yeah, okay, but this is really disappointing because I wanted to read more about the development of the ship itself. While the art department experimented with different ways of arranging the bridge consoles, I don't give a shit about the bridge consoles. They soon decided that Matt Jeffries' original layout was perfect and there was no reason to change it. Okay. Another big departure from Kirk's Enterprise was the presence of live monitors around the walls of the bridge. Matt Jeffries explains Okuda, Michael Okuda, who was the production designer for almost 18 years. Um, Matt Jeffries came up with these ingenious little jelly bean looking buttons and blinking panels and said, "This is the 24th century." I think he means 23rd. It turned out to be brilliant and still holds up today, but now when it came to do a ship which is set before TOS, we said we cannot use the same technique, which makes sense. On TNG, the problem had been solved by an ingenious system of backlit graphics, but at the turn of the 21st century, it was finally possible to fill the bridge set with real computer monitors. Yeah. Each of which could play different, fully rendered animations, albeit at considerable expense. Yeah, there were. So if you want to talk about the bridge and the shuttle bay and all those things, that's fine. But talk about the design of the ship. Like I want who did this? Who was it? Doug Drexler? Was it Drexler? Yeah, Doug Drexler. Like I want to hear what he has to say about this. This is disappointing. This is really disappointing. Or is it that the Kelvin, just because the ship is on screen for only 5 minutes, is it that the Kelvin just there wasn't a lot to talk about storyline and characters and things like that. So the only thing they did have to talk about was the ship itself. So they just expanded on it. Was the Kelvin's booklet, was that kind of the exception? And maybe this is the norm? Because I'll tell you that I'm not happy with this. Like I'm glad I got it, but like what's here will be interesting to read now that I actually like the show. But come on, seriously. You gotta get page 16. That's disappointing. It really is. I wanted to see what there. There's no there's no concept. With the Kelvin booklet that I showed, and I'll obviously have linked the thing below. With the Kelvin, there was like 12 concept images on just the first 2 pages. And then there was refinements and further refinements and all those kinds of like, oh yes, absolutely. And there was detail of the Bussard collector, and there was alternate views of like the back of the nacelle, and they had details of the shuttle bay, and like, and you heard me. I was very impressed. Like, oh my god, these are details you're never gonna see in the movie, and it's also details that that trekkers live for. This is the exact opposite. It's this reads like a press release. That's what this is. It reads like a press release. It's talking about all this stuff, and then the last 2 pages are the ship herself. And even then, it's not even the last 2 pages because on the last page, second, oh, page is torn. I'm under the I'm under the impression this booklet is secondhand because that should not be torn like that. Yeah, so on page 18, about halfway down, a new era of effects. They're not even talking about the ship anymore. With a substantial budget and access to the new technology, the VFX team was determined to take television effects to another level. When they filmed the Star Trek Voyager, huh? That's a weird typo, or not a typo, but that's a okay. When they filmed Star Trek Voyager, most of the effects had been created practically, but now CGI was dominant, making effects more affordable than ever. That's debatable. The pilot, Broken Bow, they forgot a comma, had over 300 effects shots in it. A lot of movies don't have that many, and they probably have more than a month or two to do, and they probably have more than a month or two to do them, recalls VFX supervisor Ronald B. Moore. So they're not even talking about the ship. They only talk about the ship for like 1, 2 pages, and these are really big pictures, by the way, so it takes up more than. So 2, 3 pages, and that's it. They're back to talking about stuff. I mean, they talk about the Suliban, and it's all broken, but this is disappointing. This is really disappointing. Yeah, I'm gonna write to Eaglemoss and see if they've got another one of these. Like maybe for the Like the 4-inch version of the NX1 Enterprise. Like maybe they've got a different version, but it seems to me that only the XL um, models or replicas. Seems to me only they come with these booklets or these books, these magazine. Oh, I could see it'd be mooks. Now that I think about it, because it's a magazine mixed with a book. This might be a mook. Um, yeah, that's disappointing. I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy. Like I said, yes, I'm glad they've got, and they've even got, what were they thinking when they created these particular character or actors without makeup? That's fine, and they talk about the pilot episode, okay, but I got this specifically so that I could get more information on the design of the ship, and it's not there. I wanted to see the concept images, and it's not here. I'm starting to repeat myself at this point, so I guess that means it's time for me to close this out. So, anyways, by the way, the stand fell apart when I was lifting the thing, so I need to be careful. Although there's enough die-cast metal on here that it probably would survive a decent fall from the shelf. So, there you go. There's your $75, or rather, there's my $75. I don't like the way the display stand's holding this. That's. I want to say this came out earlier. I want to say this came out in 2019. I think I could be wrong. So, like, they should know better by now. But that stand really does not want to stay on there. Okay, so anyways, there's $75 for you right there. This is disappointing. I am not happy with this, but holy shit, there's a lot of diecast metal on display here. That's still good. That's still goodness right there. Okay, so like I said, it was not an unboxing, and oh god, is this going to be a 2-hour video? I hope not. It'd be interesting if it is. Maybe I should break it up into two videos. Make it bite-sized chunks or something like that. I don't know. Okay, I think I've kind of said everything that I need to say. Oh, there's little vents on the backside of the pylons. Neat. I'm depressed. This is wow. That's what a huge difference between how I felt about the whole Kelvin experience. Like I got that thing, and then there's a whole detailed book and loads of information about it, and it's great. I don't care if it's on screen for 5 minutes or not. That's exactly what it should have been about. And this is just the exact opposite. It's like, why are you talking about the show so much? I want to talk. I want to hear about the ship. Hello. Oh God. This is a bad angle to hold this at. I'm actually holding the display stand and it's slipping. Okay. So I got about half of what I was expecting out of my $75. So, okay. So that is that. And so with that, this is AV Unit 4A saying thank you for tuning in. Boy, that was really disappointing. Like, really disappointing. Am I out of my mind? There's no, there's no concept. There's nothing on the ship itself. Oh, God, I'm gonna put that back in the box. That pissed me off. So is my nose being itchy.